second. We just need Tarzan to come home, for goodness sake. And then we will have Griffin all back together again, theoretically, in another day, depending on where Tarzan does go. As first pick, going to be the Corki. Let's go through the bands here just a little bit. I didn't really quite do this table setting like I'm supposed to, but it's the last game of the season. I'm sure you guys can forgive me. Leona, Ashe, and the K'Sante taken away. The Maokai and Rumble, which have been pretty standard bans, are going to be the first ones.
I was afraid that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So, to me, the previous series, which didn't have stakes, was also the final series that those two teams will play. These two teams are reasonably our two favorites to make it to the final.
Yeah.
And obviously, as I'm sure we'll be getting into during the POC state as well, there are some very strongly held beliefs as to what an LCK final is and has been for the last 3 years.
Yep.
So we might be tied to that. But right now, these two teams don't want to really give anything away, and I don't think we're going to see anything crazy. I don't think we're going to see anything too creative out of them as a result. So, yeah, Peanut might self-counterpick Sejuani into Nidalee, which is a dreadful matchup, but it doesn't matter because he's Peanut and he is going to try and make the best of it. He's going to sync up with the light, and it's going to be fine. I feel like the
2-3 for me could have just been Zyra Renekton, and you would have felt all right about it. Zeker is just hovering as many champions as he possibly can, will eventually land on the Zeri. And the way that he was doing that makes me feel like we might have some more experimentation, but we'll see exactly where things are going to go. Right now, it is 2 range champions and a Sejuani, the things that make us the most sad. As Trophy has been playing a lot of Tristana at the moment in solo queue, of course, we know this guy really does like taking the Tristana into the Corki matchup, even though it has gotten worse. He's still feeling like he's going to be able to get it done. Tristana and the Nidalee hasn't always been our favorite, but it's Gen G, so I guess we'll just deal with it.
Yeah, not super excited draft so far. There are some flex potentials. This could theoretically be Zeri mid for Zeka, and Doran could be playing the Corki top.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's like the one flex angle that you have. For Gen G, they're going to be looking to solidify this lineup with a good amount of CC. Right now, they have all damage, but very little setup. We already have seen the K'Sante and the Leona banned by Hanwha. I imagine that they're going to kind of continue in that vein, because for them, they already have the Sejuani, so Sejuani alone, I think, has struggled as hard engaged into some compositions, but generally, you can rely on that pretty well. In Gen G, they need CC, right? Like, the Renekton ban makes sense, given that Nidalee is on the board, and you don't really want to deal with that. That's just not very fun and interactive gameplay, but if they don't get CC, so many of the fights are going to be so reliant on just hitting these skill shots, which, if you already look how mobile that core here for Hanwha is going to be insanely hard. The Rel, to me, is probably the highest priority here for Gen G because it has so much team fight setup. Nautilus is another one just because it's really good into Zeri specifically, and I wouldn't be surprised if Gen G or Hanwha Live rather end up taking one of those two away. But that does leave the Rakan open for Delight, which maybe that's what Lahans wants to go to. And yeah, there we do see the ban of the Nautilus.
I think Rel does make a lot of sense here, though. Rel Misfortune has been probably the most popular pairing as far as Misfortune lanes are concerned. Last pick Malphite is now very obvious and face up, and so we'll see what Hanwha Life Esports do to mitigate their rock ability.
Nice.
Yeah, don't pick too many scissors. Gwen would not be the choice. Gwen actually has a great matchup into Malphite. Isn't that just wrong? Isn't that wrong in like every way? What will we
think what paper is? Paper is what, like Papercraft Anivia?
Yeah, or like Mummy Amumu.
Sure.
Something like that.
It's just Gnar. It's Cookie Cutter, Atlas.
Yeah.
The Gnar comes through. It's probably going to be GP then from Keen. There could be an angle here for a Cannon, which has really struggled in terms of general power in the meta, but we do know that it's a good matchup in the Gnar. It also, I like having AoE damage when the Rakan is in play. Ox always talks about this as well, but
Nasus.
I need a moment. Because I'm baffled. We've seen the Nasus specifically as a counter pick into the Cannon. And that in theory makes a lot of sense, right? You can shrug off a lot of the early damage. Eventually, Cannon can't really stat check you. You can just stack early, and then post 6, you have a lot of extended all in power. But at the same time, when you think about it, Nasus is so insanely good into any AD carry, really. And I know that AD carries have been so insanely strong recently. Widow is just super broken. Does it provide setup? No.
Sort of.
Well, yeah,
It
Widow,
makes
I
it
guess.
harder to do walk.
Yeah, that's true. And we all know Walk is one of the best abilities in the game.
Turns it into Trudge.
I can't wait to see this. Build as well, wonder what's going to be. Can either go towards something like the Triforce and then the second item, Frozen Heart. Something we see often when you get a lot of armor. The passive is obviously insanely good into the composition that is here for Hanwha Life. And it's going to make their life pretty hard, I think, because this Nasus is going to be an absolute raid boss come mid-game.
He's going to be a monster. I'm looking forward to seeing how well he's going to be able to stack up as well. We do often see the Spirit Fire being the early max just to make sure you can take control of the lane.
2 dogs in one day?
I know, it is kind of crazy. Definitely an older dog in this one.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll see whether Keen has learnt some new tricks as we hop onto the Rift for Game 1 of Gen G versus Hanwha Life Esports.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Alright, self-nitpick here just a little bit. It's actually Hanwha Life Esports versus Gen G. I apologize. Should have said it in the correct order, but there you go. For all intents and purposes, it's the same. Zeka and Chovy facing off here in this mid lane. The more things change, the more they stay the same. This was our most common matchup at the beginning of the season. It is now our most common matchup at the end of the season.
Yay!
Yeah, woo!
It's back.
Well, it's not the most common, but it is what we have in today's game. It's the most common of this game. There you go.
As we do have Keen, obviously, as you pointed out, Spirit Fire is very, very strong early. Imagine it's going to be the classic where you go like 3 points and then go from there. There was also, which is a build that definitely got a lot weaker as the season progressed, but initially you saw even people going like Faded Ashes Rush, and then you went like Blackfire, and you went Emax with First Strike, and then you could just kind of print gold, but then First Strike got nerfed. And I imagine Keen is just going to go for some very early arrest, which is very effective, as we see the Scorch, as well as the Mana Flow ban, so no surprises there. Eri going to really help you, because Mininar does actually hate having to deal with ranged threat, which the E can definitely provide. And then you just scale, and again, this is a full AD composition from Hanwha. Yes, there is some magic damage, yes, there is some true damage on the Corki, but all things considered, Keen is going to be very tough to kill if you also take into account the fact that we have that Nidalee as an early laning phase here, looking good for Viper in the Light in these first few traits.
Yeah, and I think Keen probably still wants to end up building us like a Spirit Visage eventually or something like that, but otherwise he can just build armor.
Oh yeah.
And be so incredibly happy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, as I said, I imagine it's going to be Triforce into Frozen Heart.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what he ends up with. It's not like...
Triforce, Frozen Heart, Randuin's, and then the
God.
Immortal.
Yeah, well that sounds pretty good to me, Atlas.
It does have to get there, and that's the difficulty for Nasus just in general. They require a game to continue. The thing about Gen G that is pretty handy here for Keen is the fact that every other lane is pretty good. So they should be all right with being able to buy as much time for their doggo in the top lane as they would like, as Chovy does have shove in this mid lane. Zeka still dealing with a little bit of Chovy's harass here. I wonder how the trade went not so well, just because we have seen Tristana's kind of abused in this matchup in the early game these days, as Lehends does still commit to the crash down, as Viper Delight going to be moving away. Level 3 is gained here by Gen G a little bit earlier, as Canyon is moving in. I think hops away from that ward as well, as the spear is going to miss. Needed to get it in there before the minion wave conga line through, not quite able to connect it. Hanwha will be okay for the moment, but presence known here of Canyon in this area is going to help out as Viper gets a bit of a heal. And so far so good here for Hanwha Life Esports' bottom lane that are just trying to weather the storm as best as possible. And Peanut here towards the top side, seeing what he can get done. The hop is good, and Doran will have the Mega Gnar available, gets the wallop down as well as Keen. He might be able to flash it, but he does not go for it, as there is first blood going over to Peanut.
Oh man, Keen initially looking at the positioning on the map, because we saw Canyon taking the bot side scuttle, reasonably, Peanuts towards that top half. I think maybe overestimating how far he could be up the lane. Not going to be the end of the world in terms of his individual laning phase. Kill going over to Peanut actually, I think, kind of bails him out in that regard.
Yeah.
It would have definitely been much worse if the kills had gone over to the Gnar. But him still missing out on a bit of XP, him having to TP like this is quite rough. And again, you know reasonably that Peanut's going to be towards that top side of the map. So, like, if anything, probably would have wanted to flash there, but with both flashes available for Gnar as well as for Peanut, you realistically just end up dying there, I think, no matter what, with the position that you're in the lane. So, not the end of the world, but definitely a big early win here, and Peanut making his presence known.
Yeah, that's Delight.
Hello.
Moving towards the mid lane as well. Zeka winning out on that trade very, very nicely. And there are a lot of minions making their way forward, so it looks like things are going to remain very, very even as far as farm numbers are concerned between both Chovy and Zeka. And I think that Tristana, it's going to be all about getting as many items as you possibly can and scaling into the late game. So this early laning phase, not something that I think Gen G are too worried about as far as Zeka getting in that extra harass, as Chovy misses 2 minions, and that probably makes a lot of people sad because normally he gets all of them. As Lahen's on a ward, we'll be able to get a control ward down as Canyon looking for his Gromp here towards the bottom side. Sort of the last camp that he has up and available. See what he's actually going to do with the rest of his time, as most of his lanes are just kind of shoving. Outside of the top side where Keen is being pushed underneath his turret. Probably happy about that just because Nasus getting caught in a long lane can feel a bit sad, and Peanut is towards the top side of the map looking for these first grubs. As Canyon will be able to move on over. See what he can do about taking 1 or 2 of these down. It looks like Peanut might be able to sneak one away though. Definitely good news into this Nidalee.
Oh, 6.
Yeah, level 6 going to be gained here by Peanut, and Canyon realizing that he just has to get out of there. Spear not going to connect either, as Chovy could be solo killed, but the Buster Shot is going to keep him alive. Keen moving on in, does have Fury of the Sands, but it looks to me like it's going to be 3 grubs going over to Humble Life Esports, and they are really controlling this early game.
And I want to highlight something that we've noticed, and it's always hard to know what is genuinely just how people work, which is that once you get a guaranteed first place, once you're a team that is very clearly gearing up to playoffs, I think we always see the top team kind of, take a little bit of a more laid-back approach, and more mistakes start slipping in. And this might be one of those, as Peanut still has his ult, still has Flash.
Yep, Rocket's coming out. Zeka does not have a whole lot of mana, but he doesn't need it to auto attack. Still just going to flash on over. Gatling gun at the ready, and that is a second kill for Humble Life.
Yeah, and as I was saying, Gen G have definitely looked a lot sloppier, say like the second half of round 2. There's been a lot of games, which is why I think Pace has actually gotten this many POGs, where he's had to do some genuine lifting in the fights. And in general, I think there's been individual members of Gen G, depending on the day, depending on the game, that help him with that. And I think Lahen's team fighting is still there. But right now, Gen G definitely look like they give way more openings than they did earlier in the split, as they'll be able to just strut that one off.
Yeah, I was going to say, the walk strategy somewhat improved when you miss Fortune.
Movement speed's so good, man. It's always fun to watch. But yeah, Gen G definitely getting exposed a little bit here, and Peanut, he gets it, man. He's been so active. He really does. Chovy thinks he can just push this wave out because Zeka is low, doesn't have mana, but guess what? Boar is here.
Yep, Arctic Assault going to connect, and then Flash is invested here by Zeka, so there is at least that. Chovy does hold on to his.
Yeah, does have to. If he doesn't, then Chovy walks to the wall and then probably flashes over. And you're not sure if you're actually going to be able to pick him up, as it is indeed, as we saw, 3 points in Spirit Fire, and then now going into Q-Max here for Keen. And this is the type of composition, particularly when it comes to Keen, I think, and Pace, where you want to get at least level 6, but ideally want to get to your first time, want to get to mid-game. But right now, Gen G's play doesn't look particularly inspiring. Canyon hasn't really been able to have either an impact or generate a lead, and that's really big because that's really what you picked the
Nidalee for. Yeah, and so hasn't quite been able to get off the ground just yet. 1,400 gold is going to be the lead here for Humble Life Esports. Most of it just because Peanut has been in the better positions across this map.
Yeah.
It has been criticism that we've had for Canyon in the past, to be perfectly honest. He has had some games where he just kind of AFK farms and isn't able to have the same impact as his opposition. Peanut is not one of those players that lets you get away with that almost ever. And so right now, the jungle does kind of belong to him. You can see decent lead being built for Doran towards the top side of the map as well, as you can see, almost towards his Trinity Force. Keen still a decent ways away from that. First Drake will go over to Gen G. Second one going to be an Ocean here this game, so still a chance for the Chemtech Soul. So we're going to require Orcs to make sure that he pays attention, isn't too sausage. As Gen G now will move Canyon towards the top side, probably going to head towards the Krugs, and then see what he can actually impact. As this is the last bastion of hope for Gen G, honestly, in this game, and that is the fact that Pays and Lehends are actually in a pretty good position in the bottom lane.
Good and up about a wave, but MF is definitely the more early to mid-game dominant pick. Like you pick her both for having a good amount of prio in the laning phase, and then also her team fighting prowess. But when you get to actual later stages in the game, which is where Gen G has generally done well, is Doran.
Yeah, Wither is already down on top of him. Fury of the Sand, so the keen to tank up this turret, and he's going to grab some stacks for his trouble as well. And that is going to be Gen G finally on the board with a kill onto their Susan.
Zeka is just dunking on Chovy right now. He's, we'll see, Peanut.
Oh, there's the Glacial Prison! The buffer is gorgeous! The flash is going to come out! They get everything out of Chovy, but he does survive! As Lehends is like, I am here! And that is going to help allow Chovy to pick up this experience and farm underneath the turret. Very nicely done. Canyon gonna even out the grubs, and Gen G kind of coming alive in the last minute or so.
This is exactly what we talked about at the beginning of the game, where Gen G, even if they struggle in the early game, you're always only a couple of plays away from them retaking control. And this is by no means enough, right? There's still gold lead for Humble Life. But this sequence, topside gank into immediate setup here. And I understand why Doran feels very safe, because he is about to turn Mega, but then there does get hit by the spear. The damage, even for this Maganar, is enough. The Wither value comes through, and one of the big benefits when you have the level 6 available for the Nasus is that your ult just genuinely shreds people, right? So, like a Doran is tankier, doesn't really make a whole lot of difference if he is within that zone. And then Canyon turn that into grubs, and then the fact that Lehends is able to roam up also means that the fact that the Light was looking for a continuation in the play doesn't end up actually making a huge difference. In this first game, it really is, as I think you'd expect between these two teams. This is very slow, very calculated.
Yeah, methodical gameplay.
Yes.
And last time these two teams met up as well, especially in Game 2, it was kind of what felt like Hanwha's game to lose for a large portion of it, until Gen G just decided from about the third Drake onwards that they were going to win.
We can even go back to when these two teams met in like the upper bracket. That was the Chovy Insane 1v9, right? Like in spring,
yeah,
upper bracket finals. Right now, gold lead, about 900. Nothing too riveting in the grand scheme of things. Early Drake lead for Gen G, but it's only a single one. Grubs free to free. And then it's going to come down to how these fights do play out. And that's where the team fighting power of that Rel and MF, I think in particular, is going to be big. And does Humble Life make the right calls? Because one thing I do not want to see is Chovy be left alone in the side lane when Humble Life over-index on an objective, into him just suddenly being up like 20 CS. Because that has happened before, as...
Yeah.
Yeah.
He pressed Q on the Doran.
He doesn't have Triforce yet.
Not quite. Does have a Sheen, so at least it's getting impacted by something. As Canyon was looking for Doran. Doran is going to walk as far away as possible. We'll keep him alive for the moment.
It's a good amount of stacks out. That's 220 already.
Not doing too bad. We'll have to keep our eye on it. And Viper and Delight still just chilling. Everything is kind of okay as far as this matchup is concerned.
And for me, Nasus is one of those champions that, like, basically from this point on until like what, 35 minutes, he is really hard to match. I think eventually you get to the point where Corki and Viper are gonna have enough damage when they get like 3-4 items to actually chew through, but right now that's not the case. Just need to respect because they don't know where Peanut is. I wonder what the trade is gonna be here, because as I say that, look at Chovy. I think they know that this Herald is being taken, and immediately Gen G fully committing to the cross map here.
Yeah, everyone is in this bottom side of the map. Lahen's already cleared out whatever vision was in the area.
This is just going to be gone, isn't it?
Yep, he can give the Primal Surge over to Chovy. And
one more wave. Oh, do they need one more wave?
Well, I think if they are going to stick around and try and take it, no, they're not going to even need to worry about too many turret shots. As yeah, Doran and Delight, they will be able to get here, but it is not enough to actually save this outer turret. So that's first turret blood. Now Extendo Beam going to be avoided here by Pays. Should be able to hold on to this mid wave. As you can see, the charge is still going to come through, and the turret will be taken out. So the Rift Herald is traded for first turret blood, but is still able to grab a turret for themselves. So Humble Life Esports will hold on to a small gold lead, and Peanut is also possibly able to take this dragon away as well.
Yeah, this is definitely a favorable trade for Humble Life, right? They're able to, yes, the gold isn't as ideal, but mid lane turret is way more valuable than a bot lane turret is, and they're going to get the dragon as well. Keen is going to get this. I don't really think there's anything that we can do about that. And that means that he's going to get a lot of gold into the pockets as a...
That's a Hex Tech, Soul. That's that's the other tech. This is the dangerous one, because now everyone's going to have to fight for all of these. Hextech Soul going to be incredibly valuable. Each Drake going to be very valuable as Keen.
There it is.
Valuable. He does have that Trinity Force now completed. Doran did finish off his Cull. Certainly good news, but he's going even with a Nasus, and that often feels bad if you're not the Nasus, as now Lahens could be in trouble. Speaking of feeling bad, he is going to be taken out here. Permafrost a little bit too powerful, and Viper has delivered his first kill of the game. And maybe the conversation about Zeri moments and things like that might need to happen. It's been a bit of a slow start, so we haven't needed to worry about it, but could certainly be a factor in this game.
And right now, we're starting to see Gen G again. Some of these corners are being cut. And the right call being made not to flash there. Again, it's one of the scenarios where even if you flash, you probably die and you lose a lot of value. But Gen G, the early games have been a bit of a step down from where they were before for Humble Life. I think it's also important not to be kind of... don't have a false sense of security, right? Like, yes, you're getting some picks, but the gold is still basically dead even. And Gen G, their team fighting is something we have talked about with great Reverie very often, as we do see here the Warden's Mail done, and as mentioned, Keen probably gonna go, as you already pointed out, for go in, like Warden's Mail or a Frozen Heart into the Randuin straight up.
I would like the Randuins just because I like the extra CC when your Wither isn't necessarily always going to be up, but I don't really mind. You could even go third item Spirit Visage and even kind of be alright with that, just because it does synergize so well with Siphoning Strikes. Just makes you kind of feel even more immortal. But I don't know how much healing reduction there is going to be from Humble Life Esports. Not exactly going to be very many Oblivion Orbs picked up, as now Canyon not quite finding the spear. As Chovy is taking a red buff, Peanut is going to move on to Vision. And I just don't know whether he wants to try and fight the Blade of the Ruin King Chovy right now, as Doran could be in trouble. Spear is going to go wide, but look at the Q damage. It is ridiculous, and Doran does hit the Mega Gnar, but Canyon's still going to be able to pounce on top of him. Viper trying to fight this one out as the Fury of the Sands has already come through, but Keen is a monster. And he isn't going to be going down anytime soon. Canyon once again looking for these angles as the inner turret is going to get bonked aggressively by Keen. And will fall down.
That's a raid boss. Atlas.
Yeah.
Well, right there. Viper's like, oh guys, no. Abandon.
It's one of the Anubises from Encourage. Those things, they're really dangerous.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with the Jackal, as it was shown there by Keen. That's an inner turret, and now for the first time, I think Gen G actually in the gold lead, and it's just one pick onto Doran, which I can't even really fault him for it. Like, he was underneath his own inner with teammates in the vicinity.
Yep, and like he even dodged the spear.
Yeah, this
and had flash.
And his Narbar was almost up. Like, this feels like you should be fine. And then I think they make the right call to just be like, no, let's not walk up to Keen. And this is going to continue. Like, this Nasus is going to remain an insanely big power point, and I'm kind of interested to see to what extent Gen G can leverage that to get these dragons, right? Because that's the real thing, is that if you do get a Hextech Soul, I think that on paper, the Humble Life comp, when it comes to front-to-back teamfights in the late game, way easier to play, right? You have enough dive to threaten the Misfortune so that she just can't get free ults off. And Gen G, they have decent front line, but eventually they're going to start getting shredded through. If you get Nidalee and Tristana with a Hextech Soul, that does really change the equation.
Yeah.
And you got the Nessus E armor shred as well, so it's not even like Peanuts and Doran are going to be able to tank a whole lot.
No, I think that Keen is going to be a very, very large problem that they're already struggling to deal with.
And now he's maxing Wither instead. Keen.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Big fan.
I feel like Spiritfire is just there for the first few levels to allow you to have some sort of laning phase, and then you get a Trinity Force, and then you don't really care about putting Spiritfire points in anymore. You don't really require it. Can sometimes mess up your ability to last hit everything with Q, which is so incredibly important. And so yeah, Keen is very, very close to finishing that Frozen Heart. That is going to be available for this fight if he does want to teleport back in for it, but probably just going to stick around as Peanut going to get possibly caught out a little bit here. He is very tanky with the Frost Armor and the Aftershock as he looks for the Glacial Prison. Connected here as they just blow up Lehends. Not going to have their Rel available for this fight. Canyon going to miss another spear as well as Chovy's taking the enemy blue buff. Of course he is. And they might just be giving this one up.
Oh, I was just thinking about this. Look at the spikes on Anwa as well. 2-item spike for Corki, 2-item spike for this area as well.
Yep, spears are still coming in though. Keen is still very scary. Teleport to come down now for the Gnar as Peanut. He's really low. That is going to be the steal away by Canyon. They're going to try and focus Keen, but I don't know whether that's a good idea, as that's another kill. And now Chovy is flashing forward, finds another reset. There's another one as the double comes in. 280 carries left remaining for Humble Life Esports. They've got no one to stand behind, and somehow Gen G just decide to win.
And Lehends, he might have slept through the alarm for this one. Not really woken up just yet, but the rest of the team, Atlas, they are very much awake, and they turn They turned a pick on Lehends into a dragon, a one-team fight, and a Baron. That's not fair. That's not cool. You can't do that.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you put a Glacial Prison into Lehends. Ah, yeah, joke's on you, but now you've got Glacial Prison on cooldown. So we're going to ace you, steal the dragon, and get Baron off the back end of it. That's how that math works. Let's see how this one works.
So I gotta take another look at this. One part of this is I think that Doran TP's in with the Mega Gnar, but he's not actually able to influence the fight. So the dragon goes over, and then Doran is alone in the pit. Pace had a really good zoning
bullet
ult.
time, yeah.
Yeah, and no, they don't have any cooldowns left to stop him. And then, yeah, Chovy smells blood in the water and shows us some Tristana.
A sidestep on the grand entrance at the beginning of that fight as well. Really, really impressive stuff from Chovy. We know that he's pretty good at the gaming in general, but always good to see some examples of it from his perspective. As now Gen G with a Baron and a Nasus, taking turrets and doing side lane stuff is not going to be an issue. Looks to me like he's also going to go towards the Spirit Visage as item number 3.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
I don't mind it either.
Or as you already mentioned, and not only, funnily enough, it's not only the healing that you do yourself, right? The lifesteal, but it's also Canyon's heal.
Yep.
That's like a lot of value there. And yeah, now they're sieging with a poke comp, and they can just Spirit Fire. They can use these Nidalee spears.
And Delight cannot face check. He is going to get a ward in there, but that is immediately going to get blown up. And Gen G are going to do their very best to try and suffocate them out here as Keen's going to flash the Glacial Prison. Peanut is still looking for more, but taking so much damage from Pays. Lehends and Chovy trying to get themselves over as Humble Life, realizing this is not their angle to fight right now. And Gen G, based on this, just get free reign to head towards this mid lane, and they are just going to continue to try and zone them from the area. Canyon chasing Delight out of there. And Gen.G, can they get even more? Is this just going to be an inhibitor turret going down already? The Red Bull Brown power play already up to 2.3k as Kane, Fury of the Sands, comes out, and the battle dance has to be employed. Gen.G, they will be able to take down that turret. This was all because they moved on in when they didn't really have the ability to do so. Doran's going to go down as well. The inhibitor's taken out. And without Doran, is this going to be even more sieging for Gen.G? It's only 24 minutes in, guys.
Yeah, they don't really need to, as the bounties are now up. And this is exactly coming to the days when we're talking about Hanwha Life. I think this team is insanely strong. But I gotta say, Atlas, you can't make any mistakes against Gen.G, and Hanwha Life are learning that. Kenyon might have to flash me. No,
he's just going to turn around and activate some red buff here onto Peanut. Nothing they can really do. And yeah, you're exactly right, Chronicler. Like, I don't think it matters which team you are. If Gen.G gets like any sort of opportunity like this is the problem. It looks so much worse. There are a lot of other teams that would have won a skirmish around a dragon and been like, oh cool, we have a dragon. But Gen.G are like, oh cool, we will take your entire base, the Baron and the kills that we can get, and we'll also take the rest of it, and where's your lunch money? Like, that's what Gen.G does when they get any sort of entryway.
Looks to be Jackshow.
Oh, I like that even more.
Yeah, it's going to make him extremely beefy. He does have 500, well, not, he has 470. 500 is a bit of a stretch, but we are only 25 minutes
Yeah, 475 at 26 minutes is not bad at all. Make that 486.
You know, if I get the excuse to vote for Onassis, I'm taking it.
Oh, yeah.
I had Neferi earlier today.
We voted for Clear when he played Nasus, right? That time in Challenger, so obviously we're going to do it here. Unfortunately, Morgan didn't win when he played it earlier in the season, as Peanut's going to go down. That is going to be another kill over to Chovy as Viper takes so much damage. My God, Keen stands in the front. He does a ton of damage himself, but then he's got the artillery cannons in the backline as Chovy's dancing forward. He'll find the reset on the jump as now Doran not going to hit Mega in time. The immediate explosion of both the Corki and the Gnar. 2 Yordles for the price of 1 when it comes to that ultimate. And this game is done and dusted. Gen.G our favorites for the final, and they are looking absolutely like that in game 1 of our final match of the season. There goes the Nexus. Gen.G go up 1-0 in the series.
Really a game that Hanwha Life is going to look back to, and it's very, very easy to pinpoint what went wrong. But I think what you can see with the look on Peanut's face, it's a lot harder to figure out, like, what do we do about that?
Yeah.
Because,
I mean,
there's like, Doran, I think, had a really rough game. That's okay. You know, the Gnar obviously being a very obvious weak point here in this one. But just the killer instinct on Gen.G, the moment that you show